Today, we're diving into one of my favorite topics inside the Well-Built framework: color, neuroscience, and biophilia. Welcome back to the Renovation Secrets podcast, where we will pull back the curtain on what's really happening inside our homes and why so many spaces that look beautiful on Instagram still somehow leave people feeling tired, overstimulated, disconnected, or just off. Honestly, this conversation goes way deeper than paint colors and throw pillows. Because what if I told you that the environments we create are constantly communicating with the brain, whether we realize it or not? Your nervous system is reading a space long before your conscious mind decides whether you like it. And I think that we're starting to see the consequences of what happens when our environments stop feeding the brain the stimulation it biologically expects. We've bleached the world. I've been noticing something over the last several years. The world has slowly become beige or gray, not just interiors. Cars, furniture, architecture, retail stores, technology, even branding. Everything has shifted toward flat neutrals, soft grays, muted palettes, low contrast, minimal detail. And listen, I understand why minimalist became attractive. Simplicity can absolutely reduce cognitive overload in the right context. But there's a difference between calm and sensory starvation. And I genuinely believe part of what we're seeing is the environment adaptation to screen culture. I had a fascinating conversation recently where someone mentioned that television shows are even simplifying storylines because audiences are multitasking while scrolling on their phones. Just think about that for a second. We're designing entertainment around divided attention, and I think our environments have followed that same trajectory. Homes are becoming quietly, visually, because our brains are already overloaded digitally. The problem is humans did not evolve inside smooth white boxes, staring at glowing rectangles all day. We evolved in layered, textured, dynamic, natural environments. The brain expects variation, whether it's pattern, depth, movement, color, shifts, natural materials, light changes, temperature, texture, complexity, not chaos, but richness. And when we remove too much of that environmental information, something interesting starts happening psychologically and psychologically in our brain. People begin feeling disconnected from their environments. Our brain experiences a space long before we do. There's an entire field of study called neuroaesthetics, and this field is helping us understand something designers have intuitively known for centuries. Beauty is not frivolous, it's biological. The brain is constantly evaluating environments for safety, stimulation, stress, and comfort. Before someone consciously notices a room, their nervous system has already begun processing the lighting, acoustics, spatial proportions, texture, color, materiality, pattern, symmetry, movement, and even ceiling height. This happens automatically, and certain environments can either support the nervous system or subtly stress it. There's fascinating research from people like Stephen Keller, Judith Hurwin, Don Ruggles, exploring how humans respond to environmental cues rooted in nature and evolutionary biology. Because the brain does not separate us from our environment, it sees us as part of it. So it's another talk. Let's talk biophilia. So what is biophilia? Biophilia is essentially the idea that humans have an innate biological connection to nature. That's it. Plain and simple. It's not a trend. It's not a put a plant in the corner type solution. An actual biological relationship. And when people hear biophilic design, they often imagine huge green walls and luxury spas. But true biophilic design is much deeper and more subtle than that. It can include natural materials like wood and stone, organic textures, fractal patterns, changing daylight, even natural airflow, the visual depth and prospect and refuge, water movement, natural color palettes, tactile variation, and layered sensory experiences. The reason these things matter is because the brain recognizes them. Nature contains mathematical and visual patterns humans evolved with for thousands of years. Fractals are a perfect example, and fractals are repeating patterns found constantly in nature naturally. Tree branches, coastlines, clouds, leaves, river systems, even seashells. Research has shown certain fractal patterns can actually reduce stress responses in the brain, not metaphorically, but physiologically. Your body reacts differently, and that's just so amazing. So why not embrace that? Why modern environments feel so exhausting? Now here's where things get really interesting. Modern environments often contain two extremes. They're either overstimulation from technology, noise, glare, notifications, constant digital input, or they feel understimulation from flat, sterile, lifeless environments. And both can create problems. A completely sterile environment may look clean aesthetically, but the brain can perceive it as emotionally cold or psychologically unengaging. At the same time, chaotic environments overwhelm the nervous system. So the goal is not maximal stimulation, it's balanced stimulation. And this is where thoughtful color and environmental layering become incredibly important. And color is not just decoration. Color has been massively oversimplified in the design industry. Most conversations revolve around trends. Warm white is versus cool white, or greige versus taupe, what's in and resale value. But color affects the perception, the mood of a space, alertness, the emotional tone, spatial experience, even physiological responses. And no, this does not mean blue rooms make you sad and yellow rooms make you happy. Human response to color is far more nuanced than that. The saturation matters, contrast, lighting, and even texture and materiality matters. Context. A deeply structured or deeply saturated forest green in matte lime wash feels entirely different than the exact same color in a high gloss synthetic finish. The brain reads both differently. And what fascinates me is how much chroma and richness have disappeared from our environments in the last decade. We've become afraid of color, afraid of personality, afraid of the visual depth. Everything became safe or resale value. And ironically, I think we've accidentally created environments that don't emotionally feed people anymore. And this is where natural materials speak to the brain. One of the things I always explain to clients is that the brain responds differently to authentic materials. Real wood ages differently. Natural stone reflects light differently. Linen, which is a beautiful fabric, behaves differently. Even imperfections matter. The slight irregularities found in a natural material create visual richness that the brain finds engaging without overwhelming. Compare that to the perfectly flat symmetrical environments or synthetic environments. The brain notices that difference, even if the homeowner can't explain why one space feels better than another. This is also why heavily reflective environments can sometimes feel subtly stressful. High gloss surfaces, excessive glare, polished materials everywhere, they create visual tension. Whereas matte finishes tend to feel visually quieter and more grounding. Again, biology, not trend. We're losing our environmental engagement. I think one of the biggest hidden issues today is that people no longer meaningfully engage with their environments. We engage with screens, and the environment becomes background noise. But our surroundings still affect us constantly. Lighting affects our circadian rhythm, acoustics affects stress hormones, air quality affects cognition, and color, texture, and biophilic cues affect emotional regulation and nervous system responses. This is exactly why the Well-Built framework treats these systems as interconnected human performance tools, not decorative upgrades, because homes should do more than photograph well. They should support the human beings that live there much better than they do. What can people do right now? Now, before everyone panics and starts repainting their entire house emerald green, this doesn't require creating a jungle house. Small changes matter. Introducing natural textures, layered lighting, authentic materials, warmer dimensional finishes, tactile fabrics, visual depth, subtle color variations, a few plants here and there, organic shapes, artwork with emotional resonance, and materials that age naturally. And honestly, sometimes the answer is simply making spaces feel human again. Not perfect, but human. In closing, the more neuroscience and environmental psychology evolve, the clearer one thing becomes. Our homes are not passive containers. They are active participants in our health, our stress levels, emotional state, our focus, sleep, and overall well-being. And yet most people still approach design as if aesthetics and biology are separate conversations. They aren't. The environments we create shape how people feel every single day. That's one of the core principles behind why I created Well-Built. It's not about designing for trends or designing for social media. Designing for human performance, human experience, and human well-being. Because the future of great design is not just beautiful spaces. It's spaces that biologically support the people living inside them. And honestly, I think we're just getting started. Thank you so much for joining me today in this episode of Renovation Secrets. If this conversation changed the way you think about your environment, I'd love for you to share this episode, leave a review, or send it to someone planning a renovation or a new build. And if you want to learn more about the Well-Built framework and how these principles can transform residential design, feel free to visit detailbydesign.ca/wellbuilt. I'll see you in the next episode, and thanks goes to Hill Makes Music for our intro clip. Till next time.